The gate clanked open with a sharp metallic echo. Two guards flanked the man in the wheelchair as he was rolled down the corridor. His hands trembled slightly on the armrests, not from age, but from memory. His eyes, once sharp and commanding, were clouded now, not with age either, with something heavier. Something war couldn't take from a man, but something peace never returned. He stopped at the end of the corridor, where a steel door with a foggy window waited. Inside, behind that door, was something they told him might help with the nightmares. He didn't believe in help. Not anymore. A silent nod from one of the guards. The door hissed open. The man rolled himself in slowly. A shadow moved in the corner of the room. It was large, silent, still. A German shepherd sat on a mat, posture perfect, ears alert, eyes cold. It didn't blink, it didn't move. The man inhaled sharply, not from fear, from something worse, the ache of familiarity that met a wall of absence. His voice cracked. "Ranger!" The dog didn't react. He blinked twice, swallowed. "Ranger?" "It's me, Cole." Nothing. Not a tail wag. Not a twitch of the ear. Just that unyielding stare. Cole Wheeler, once staff sergeant, once K9 handler, once a man who stormed buildings with that dog at his side, was now just a fragile figure in a government chair, looking into the eyes of a ghost that hadn't died. Ranger tilted his head slightly. Not curiosity, not recognition, indifference. Cole clenched the armrests. "They said you were injured in the last op, that they retired you after I got hit, that they put you in isolation because you wouldn't take to new handlers." He looked down at his legs, paralyzed. 12 years. 12 years since the blast. 12 years since he last saw Ranger, bloodied and barking over his broken body. 12 years of silence. And now, nothing. He looked up again. The dog blinked, then turned its head away. That single gesture gutted him deeper than any war wound. Cole wheeled forward, a slow squeak with every push until he was within inches of the mat. "I remember the night patrol in Mosul, the building with the wires. You warned me, you saved me, you dragged me 3 blocks to safety. And now," his voice cracked again, "you don't even look at me." Ranger shifted, but not toward him. His nose twitched once, twice, then nothing. "They trained the memory out of you, didn't they?" Cole whispered. He reached into the side pocket of his jacket, pulled out something small, unwrapped it gently. A shred of old olive-green canvas, faded, blood-stained. It was once part of his uniform sleeve, the one Ranger used to gnaw on during training, the one that caught most of the dog's fur during those long Afghan patrols. He held it out, trembling. "Just smell it." The dog didn't move. Cole placed it on the floor. Ranger's ears twitched. His nose lifted, tested the air, one inhale, then another. His body shifted, not aggressively, but unsure. Then a third sniff, and something changed. It was almost imperceptible. The way his pupils dilated, the way his front paw moved just an inch forward. Cole didn't breathe. "Come on, boy. You know me, I'm still here." Ranger stood slowly, not tense, not alert, just cautious. He took a step, then another, until his nose hovered an inch over the canvas strip. He sniffed it, once, then again. And then, his entire body jolted. He jerked back as if stung, eyes wide, tail low, teeth baring just slightly. Cole didn't move, didn't blink. The dog let out a low, confused growl. His eyes locked with Cole's, and in that stare, a flicker. Recognition wasn't warm. It wasn't soft. It was brutal. Ranger lunged forward, not to attack, but to close the distance. In one motion, he was on Cole's lap, front paws planted on the arms of the chair, nose buried into his chest, breathing hard, ragged, panicked. Cole gasped, arms instinctively wrapping around the dog's body. He held tight, afraid it might vanish again. The dog whimpered, a sharp, broken sound. Cole whispered through his teeth, "You remember. You remember." But Ranger suddenly jerked back. His ears pinned down, his body trembled. He backed up quickly, tail between legs, and then he barked, one loud, thunderous bark that echoed off the walls like a gunshot. Cole flinched. Ranger barked again, louder, sharper, Not hostile, but haunted, as if chasing a ghost, only he could. See, the guards rushed in. One reached for the tranquilizer, the other yelled, "Back, get back, no, don't touch him." Cole shouted, but it was too late. Ranger was pacing now, barking at the air, spinning as if looking for something that wasn't there. The guard raised the tranquilizer gun. Cole threw his body forward, knocking the wheelchair askew. "I said don't." Ranger's eyes found Cole again, and in that frozen moment the dog whimpered once more and lay flat against the floor, breathing heavy, eyes never leaving the man in the chair. The guard hesitated. Cole slowly sat upright again. Sweat poured down his face. He waved them off. "He remembers," he whispered. Neither guard said a word. Ranger remained on the floor, his head between his paws, watching every breath Cole took like it might disappear again. Cole reached down, fingers brushing through the graying fur. "You remember the blast, don't you? The dog didn't move. You remember the blood, the screaming, and me calling your name?" Silence. Cole leaned closer. "You didn't forget. You buried it." His voice broke. "Just like I did." The room was still now, but something had shifted, not just in Ranger, in Cole. For the first time in 12 years, he wasn't alone in the memory, and that was more terrifying than the war itself, because remembering meant facing what came after. And they both knew. The worst part hadn't even begun yet. Ranger didn't move from the floor for hours. Neither did Cole. The guards had left after a quiet nod from the facility's director, a woman who had seen combat trauma up close, and knew better than to interrupt what was happening between soldier and dog. The room was dim now. Fluorescent lights overhead had switched to low power. The hum of machines somewhere down the hall was faint, barely registering against the weight of what was unfolding. Cole reached down slowly. His hand brushed Ranger's head again, gentler this time, more like a father holding a child than a soldier touching a comrade. "I shouldn't have come," Cole whispered. Ranger's ears perked slightly, then dropped. "You were better off not remembering. Weren't you?" He didn't expect an answer. But part of him, the old part that still heard Ranger's bark in his dreams, hoped for one. His eyes drifted to the far corner of the room, to the manila file folder they'd left on the small steel table. He wheeled toward it, picked it up with stiff fingers and opened it slowly. Inside, a timeline, medical records, a discharge notice, a behavioral report, and a grainy photo from a military drone circling red around two bodies, one prone and bloodied, the other crouched protectively over it. He flipped to a page with bold black ink stamped across the top. K9 Ranger, Psychological Evaluation. Summary: signs of PTSD. Triggers include gunfire sounds, heavy diesel fumes, and presence of camouflaged uniforms. Exhibits separation anxiety when confined. Refuses command from unfamiliar voices. Responds only to scent-based recognition linked to previous handler. Has not barked in 6 years. Cole's breath hitched. That bark earlier, it wasn't just recognition. It was pain. His fingers trailed down the rest of the page, then paused. One line. One detail. Last noted aggressive behavior. During transfer from Baghdad Air Base to U.S. holding. Lunged at personnel during stretcher removal of wounded handler. Presumed attachment trauma. Handler unknown at the time. Unknown because no one had connected them. 12 years. 12 long years. And no one had told him Ranger survived. He looked down. The dog's body was curled tight now, breathing steady but shallow. The eyes were open, not alert but not distant either. Watching. "Do you remember Kuwait?" Cole whispered. "You hated the sandstorms. You'd crawl into my tent and hide under the cot like a scared kid." He smiled softly, a ghost of an expression. "And I'd pretend I didn't see you, even when your whole tail was sticking out." Ranger shifted slightly, ears flicking at the sound of Cole's voice. "I lied in that report, you know. Said you were always disciplined. Said you followed every order." He chuckled darkly. "But you were stubborn. Too smart for your own." "Good," his voice lowered. "I never trained you to love me. That wasn't in the manual." He paused. "But you did." Silence stretched out like a wire pulled too tight. Cole pulled something else from his jacket pocket. A small, cracked leather tag, dog tags, but not his. Not official. It was the homemade kind, the one made from a fire-damaged collar back in '09 after that IED en route Colorado took half their unit. The only thing they found intact was Ranger's old ID plate. He ran his fingers over the edges. I kept this. All these years. He reached down and slowly set it next to Ranger's paw. The dog twitched, nose moved forward, sniffed once, then his head slowly rested next to it. Cole leaned back in his chair. The old scars beneath his ribs were aching again. Not from the cold or the metal implants, but from memory. He drifted back 12 years ago. A heat wave shimmered off the ground in Afghanistan. Dust everywhere. The kind that got into your lungs and stayed there like cement. Cole and Ranger were part of Echo Squad, frontline K9 unit, specialists in reconnaissance and bomb sniffing. They weren't friends at first. Ranger was unbroken, full of fire, fresh off a failed handler pairing. Cole was on his third tour, all grit, no time for sentiment. He didn't want a dog. But war doesn't care about preferences. Their first op together was Chaos, a compound sweep in Kandahar. Insurgents left booby traps inside a burned-out school. Ranger saved 2 lives that day, not by sniffing, by refusing to move forward, sat his tail down and stared. Cole yelled, ordered, threatened. Nothing. And then, the building exploded from a secondary device. From that moment on, Cole stopped giving orders. He started listening. They trained at night under red flares. Ate from the same ration bags, slept in the same dirt. Ranger began recognizing his heartbeat even before he spoke, picked up shifts in Cole's mood faster than any human could. They were bonded in blood and fire. But then came the final op, the one no one wanted to talk about, the ambush, the scream, the pressure on Cole's chest, his blood soaking Ranger's fur, the airlift that took him, but not Ranger, away. That was the last memory Cole had before waking up in a hospital 3 countries away, unable to move his legs. His partner listed as MIA. They told him Ranger didn't make it. That was the only lie he ever believed until now. He looked down again. Ranger had inched closer, not touching, but close. Eyes still locked on Cole. There was pain in those eyes, but also recognition. They weren't strangers anymore, just 2 broken soldiers in a quiet room, surrounded by papers that didn't tell the real story. Cole reached down once more. This time, Ranger didn't flinch. He rested his head on Cole's knee. A heavy breath left both of them, not relief. Grief, 12 years of it, finally breathing out together. They stayed like that until the intercom buzzed softly. Mr. Wheeler, visiting time. Is over. Cole looked up. His voice was steady but low. I'm not visiting. A pause, then a quiet voice on the other end. Understood. The line went silent. Cole looked down. We're not done yet, he said softly. You and me? We've got unfinished business. Ranger's eyes didn't leave his, and this time, when Cole reached out, Ranger licked his hand. 3 days passed. Cole hadn't left the facility, not even once. He slept in the chair next to Ranger's mat, waking up with his spine screaming and his mind on fire. The night nurse stopped questioning him after the first time he snapped. The director allowed it, quietly, off the record. There were rules, and then there were debts, and the military had owed him this one for 12 years. Ranger had begun moving more, nothing dramatic, no barking, no tail wagging, but his body didn't curl as tightly anymore. His ears responded quicker, his eyes followed Cole across the room. Once he even rose to his feet when Cole returned from the hallway. It was working, the smell of his old partner. The sound of his voice. Pieces were returning, but not all of them, not the important one, not the one Cole feared most. The memory of that final day. Cole sat at the edge of Ranger's mat, holding an old flash drive between his thumb and forefinger. He hadn't dared open it for over a decade, but a call came that morning when, from a private he knew at the archives, a friend from the Echo Squad days said he dug something up, something from the classified box no one wanted to touch. Cole plugged it into the laptop, heart hammering. The screen flickered, static. Then shaky body cam footage appeared. Dust, screams, machine gun fire. A Humvee burning in the background, There they were, Echo Squad, moving through an abandoned village. Ranger was out front on lead, Cole just behind him. Voices shouted in Arabic. Then the sound that still haunted his sleep, the beep, high, shrill, an IED. It didn't go off, not yet. But something else did. On the screen, Ranger suddenly froze, his body rigid. Then he turned, not toward the IED, toward Cole, and lunged, knocked him down, just as a sniper round tore through the air, hitting the soldier who had been behind him. The screen flared white, then darkness, then chaos. Cole's body was down, screaming, bleeding, and Ranger was gone, not killed, just not there. Cole slammed the laptop shut. He couldn't breathe. That was it. That was the betrayal. He looked down at Ranger now, the same dog who once dragged him across open ground through bullets and fire, the same dog who disobeyed a command to sit, just to save his life. And now, Cole whispered, "Why'd you leave me?" Ranger's ears flicked. "You didn't die," he said. "I did. In that hospital, alone, for months. They said you were gone. I begged them to tell me otherwise. No movement. And now I find out you lived, that you were captured." The word burned. Captured. By the same people who tried to end us. Held for 3 weeks before extraction. His voice cracked. "I should have come for you. I would have. If they told me." He stood, wheeling away from the mat, gripping the file folder again. Flipping past the dog's psych report to the after-action notes. That's when he saw it. A section blacked out, hastily redacted, but someone forgot to remove the second page. Subject, K9 Ranger, suspected turn. His eyes locked on the lines. Following recovery, subject exhibited abnormal behavior toward coalition uniforms, engaged aggressively with former unit personnel. Recommended, behavioral isolation and probationary classification. Red list for potential. Decommission. Cole stared. Decommission, they were going to put him down. That's why Ranger was in this place. They hadn't rescued him. They locked him away because someone claimed he'd turned, that he couldn't be trusted anymore, that he was dangerous. Cole's knuckles whitened against the wheelchair's rubber rims. He turned slowly toward the glass window, separating Ranger's room from the hallway. On the other side stood a man in uniform. Clean. Polished. Cold. Colonel Dwight Mercer. Cole's voice came. "Out like gravel. I thought you were dead." Mercer stepped into the room, shutting the door behind him with a hiss. "You're not supposed to be here, Cole," Mercer said calmly. "Neither is he," Cole growled. Mercer looked down at Ranger, who was still, but awake. "Do you have any idea what you're playing with?" Mercer said, voice low. Cole rolled closer. "I'm playing with my life." "What are you playing with, Dwight?" "Cover-ups. Red-listed dogs." "Silence?" Mercer's jaw tensed. "You don't understand what he did." "I know exactly what he did," Cole snapped. "He saved my life again and again." Mercer stepped forward, eyes sharp. "He was found with insurgents, Cole, used against our own. Mauled 2 soldiers on recovery." Cole's voice lowered. "And I bet they were wearing uniforms, smelling like diesel, yelling commands in unfamiliar voices, after he'd spent 3 weeks in a cage, starved, beaten, and forced to fight for entertainment." He held up the file. "You buried this. You knew what happened. You let them write him off. Mercer didn't deny it. He's a threat. You of all people should understand that." "I do," Cole whispered. "He's a threat. To people like you." Behind them a sound, soft, sharp, a growl. Low and rumbling, from the throat of a dog who hadn't made a sound in years. Mercer turned. Ranger had risen, fully, legs tense, eyes locked on the colonel. "Ranger," Cole said gently. "Easy." The dog didn't lunge, didn't bark, just stepped forward, 1 pace 2, then stopped, shoulder slightly blocking Cole's chair. Mercer took 1 step back. Cole stared, breath held. In that moment, nothing had changed. Ranger wasn't gone. He was guarding again, just like he used to. And he was guarding Cole. Mercer backed toward the door. "Consider this a warning," he said. "Whatever history you think you're fixing, it's not your call anymore." He left. The door hissed shut. Silence fell. Then Cole whispered, "They wanted to erase you." Ranger turned slowly. Cole placed his hand on his shoulder. But I won't. Let them. That night the red light above Ranger's door came on, meaning observation was live. Cole turned his back to the camera and whispered words only Ranger could hear. We're getting out of here. The facility hummed with fluorescent silence. Cole hadn't moved from Ranger's side since the confrontation. The old German shepherd lay curled, one eye cracked open, still alert, still guarding. But Cole's thoughts wouldn't rest. There was more in that file. He knew it. More Mercer didn't want seen. And more than that, something in Ranger had cracked open. A sliver of instinct, of memory, the way he stepped in front of Cole. That wasn't training, that was loyalty, deep, buried and wounded, which meant there was still a way back, if they acted fast. By morning, Cole was wheeling himself through the quiet halls. A nurse passed, nodded politely, unaware of the classified file hidden beneath his lap blanket. He turned down a hallway marked B-Wing Archives and Records and punched the door pad. Access denied. He wasn't surprised. He reached into the pouch at his side, pulled out a chipped keycard, borrowed from an old friend still on active. Roster swipe beep access granted. The door hissed open. Rows of cold metal shelves. Locked drawers, surveillance cameras buzzing lazily. He moved straight to the back where he'd been told the behavioral records were kept. His fingers shook as he reached into the drawer labeled K9 Red Files, folder after folder. Dogs. Discarded like faulty weapons, then he found it. Subject, Ranger Inuartag, E7, K9214. He opened it. Photos first. Some from the field. Ranger leaping through fire, standing beside Cole on a scorched rooftop in Fallujah. Then later photos. Ranger in a cage, blood on his muzzle, a note scribbled across the image, unresponsive to verbal commands, subdued. After aggressive episode. Cole swallowed. Beneath it, a behaviorist's report. Displays symptoms of CSD, canine stress disorder. Severe. Memory fractures observed. Triggered by scent and voice, particularly American male tones. Aggression. Linked to acute trauma post-capture. Recommendation. Euthanasia considered if rehabilitation fails, but it was the next page that made Cole freeze. Voice memory recovery trial. Unsuccessful. Subject. K9 Ranger Handler voice. Playback. COL. Mercer. Fake identification. Response. No recognition, increased distress. Aggression triggered, trial aborted. They used Mercer's voice, a man Ranger never served under. A voice he would never recognize. They never used Cole's. No wonder Ranger never came back. He heard a footstep. Cole turned fast, heart pounding. It was the young night nurse, the one who never talked much. She stopped in the doorway, saw the open file and her eyes widened. I didn't see anything, she said quietly. Cole nodded. Good. But then, she stepped forward. I heard him last night, she whispered. Ranger, growl, protecting you. First time in years. Cole locked eyes with her. You've been here long. Long enough to know what they're doing isn't right, she said. They're watching you both, waiting. For what? For Ranger to slip, to prove them right. Cole's grip tightened on the folder. Then we won't give them the chance. That night, Cole returned to the room, his hands trembling with anticipation. He placed a speaker beside Ranger's bed and opened his phone. He pulled up a voice memo. His own voice, recorded just hours ago, but not any voice. A command, the one they used on the field. The one Ranger only obeyed when it was life or death. Bravo Echo. Home. With me. He pressed play. The sound echoed. In the quiet room, Ranger lifted his head, eyes locked on Cole. For a second, nothing. Then his ears perked. The tail twitched. Cole leaned forward. Ranger, he said softly. Do you remember? The dog's eyes narrowed. And then he stood, unsteady, like an old soldier on wounded legs. But he stepped forward, one paw, then another. Cole dropped to the floor, heart racing. He reached into his duffel and pulled out the one thing he'd kept all these years, Ranger's original collar, dusty, faded, but still carrying the scent of sweat, oil, gunpowder, and him. Cole held it out. Ranger sniffed. Then, suddenly, His body shuddered. Sharp whine, he backed up, whimpered, ears low, his tail curled. Cole froze. "Ranger!" The dog growled, low, conflicted. Then something clicked. Ranger lunged, but not at Cole, at the corner of the room, where a faint red light glowed, the observation camera. Crack! His body slammed into the wall. The light fizzled, then died. Silence. Then he turned, faced Cole, sat eyes locked. Recognition, not just of the scent, but the voice, the moment, the man. He remembered. Cole whispered, "You're back." But Ranger didn't move, didn't bark. He just sat there, watching, guarding, like always, and... Cole realized he'd never really been gone. He'd just been waiting for the world to make sense again. The next morning, everything changed. Mercer returned, with 2 MPs at his side. "We're moving him," he said sharply. "Too dangerous to keep unsecured." Cole wheeled forward, putting himself between them and Ranger. "You touch him, you better be ready." "For the consequences," Mercer sneered. "You think they'll believe a cripple and a broken dog over a colonel?" Cole raised the file. "Let's find out." Mercer froze. The nurse stepped in behind Cole. "I saw it," she said. "The moment it happened, the recovery." Ranger stepped up beside them, his body tense, ears forward. Mercer didn't move. The MPs hesitated, and Cole saw it. Fear, not of Ranger, but of the truth. Everything they buried was about to surface. The betrayal, the red list, the voice trials, all of it. Cole leaned in. This dog was a soldier. He was tortured, abandoned, and still, "He protected me last night, even when you failed." Mercer's lips parted, but he had no words. Cole whispered the last line like a death sentence. "He remembers." Mercer left without another word. Ranger didn't take his eyes off him until the door shut. Only then did he lie down, nose resting on Cole's foot. Not as a dog, not as a weapon, but as a partner, as a soldier. And for the first time in years, Cole smiled. An emergency board meeting was called. Quiet hallways turned to chaos. Uniforms rushed through corridors, whispered conversations behind locked doors. Everyone knew the storm had broken, but Cole didn't care. He stayed with Ranger. Word had spread. That night, a dozen veterans, men, who had once fought beside Ranger, showed up outside the facility. They weren't loud. They didn't chant or carry signs. They simply stood shoulder to shoulder in silence, a living wall. Each one of them had scars, some visible, most not. But they all came for the same reason, to bear witness to the dog that saved their lives. Inside, Cole sat by Ranger's side, one hand on his fur. "You know what they're gonna do," he whispered. "They'll never admit what they did, and they'll never let you leave without a fight." Ranger blinked slowly, his head resting on Cole's lap. "They still think you're dangerous," he said. "A liability, even after everything." Cole reached into his pocket and pulled out the faded patch from his uniform. The one Ranger wore in the field. He placed it gently around the dog's neck. "We'll show them," he said, "but not with noise." He looked up at the nurse standing at the door, set the hearing. "I'm ready." The room was sterile, long table, 2 officers, 1 behaviorist, 1 ethics officer, and Colonel Mercer, looming at the end, arms folded. Cole was wheeled in last, Ranger at his side, walking slow, calm. Not muzzled, gasps broke out from the observing staff. No one had seen the dog like this in years, silent, composed, standing only where Cole told him to stand. They weren't ready. Cole began to speak. "I know what you see when you look at Ranger," he said. "An aging dog with combat scars, and a file full of red ink. But what you don't see, what none of you bothered to learn, Suok, is what came before those scars." He pulled a photo from his lap and placed it on the table. Ranger dragging a wounded soldier from a blast zone. Both bloodied, both alive. This dog pulled 3 men from fire in Ramadi. He alerted our unit to an IED buried under a child's bicycle. He found a 12-year-old hostage buried under rubble. He never once failed. His voice cracked. "Until we failed him," Mercer cut in. Cold. Sharp. You're speaking emotionally, Sergeant. This hearing is about operational risk, not sentiment. Cole turned to him, eyes burning. Then let's talk about your risk assessments, Colonel. He held up the file, the one they didn't want seen. You ran voice trials without my authorization, used an unfamiliar voice to trigger memory response. You created failure so you could sign off on an easy closure, so you wouldn't have to explain a broken war dog to a Congress that only counts dollars. Silence. Even the officers glanced at each other now. Cole's voice dropped, deadly calm. You tried to erase him. The behaviorist leaned forward. Sergeant, are you claiming the subject demonstrates full memory recognition? Cole turned to Ranger. He gave the command again. Bravo Echo. Home. With me. Ranger stood, walked to Cole, sat down, eyes forward. The room froze. Does that look like a memory failure to you? The ethics officer whispered. This can't be buried. But Mercer was already standing, red-faced. You're being manipulated. By sentiment and spectacle, he snapped. This dog bit a handler 6 months ago. He snapped during training. What happens when he snaps again? Cole didn't flinch. You're afraid of what he remembers, and then... The moment broke, a loud noise from outside, shouting. A vet in uniform burst in. Sir, something's happening outside. The screens blinked. The cameras showed. The front of the facility. A young boy, maybe 10, was walking through the gate alone. Who is that? One officer barked. Cole stared at the screen. He recognized the face. Flashback Ramadi, 2015. Gunfire. Screaming. A building collapse. Cole and Ranger found him in the rubble. The boy had no name, no papers, barely any English, but he clung to Ranger's neck and wouldn't let go. They called him Tariq. They kept him safe until the Red Cross got him out. Cole had never seen him again. Until now. Tariq stood at the gates, older now but unmistakable, holding something in his hand. The guards tried to stop him, but Ranger suddenly barked, loud, deep, certain. Everyone froze. Ranger bolted from the room, through the doors, down the hallway, before anyone could stop him. Cole shouted, Don't! Restrain him. Ranger hit the doors with full force. Outside, the boy dropped the item in his hands, a torn sleeve from a uniform. Ranger skidded to a stop, sniffed it, whined. Then, tail wagged. He barked once, recognized him. A memory unlocked, a smell carried across time. The boy knelt. Ranger pushed his head into the boy's chest, shaking, tail wagging uncontrollably. The cameras caught every second. Inside, no one could speak. Back in the hearing room, Cole whispered, Your dangerous dog just recognized a child he saved 10 years ago, across a sea, across trauma, across death. He faced Mercer, voice rising. How many of you could do that? The board stood down. There would be no euthanasia, no forced retirement, no silencing. Later that night, Cole sat beside Ranger under the stars. The boy had fallen asleep with Ranger's head on his lap. The nurse brought Cole a blanket. Her eyes were wet. We almost lost him, she said. Cole shook his head. No, he whispered. We just forgot who he was. He turned to Ranger. And now, the world remembers. Dawn came quietly. No parades, no medals, just light spilling through the blinds of a small hospital room, and the slow, rhythmic breathing of a war dog asleep. At his master's side. Cole didn't sleep. He just watched. Watched the dog that had once been more than a soldier, a brother, a guardian, a memory keeper, and now, somehow, a survivor of truth. They didn't take Ranger away. The board rescinded. The transfer order. Mercer resigned quietly. No public hearing, no press conference. The video of Ranger recognizing the boy had gone viral before anyone could stop it. Millions watched. Veterans groups demanded reform, but none of that mattered to Cole. Not anymore. In the courtyard, Cole sat in his wheelchair, a blanket across his lap, Ranger lying quietly beside him. Tariq was drawing with chalk on the pavement, a soldier and a dog standing under a flag. He didn't speak much English. He didn't have to. Sometimes the boy would just sit close and hum the tune Ranger used to hear in camp, the one the medics sang when stitching wounds, the one that meant, "You're safe now." It had returned like a ghost, soft, healing. Cole's. Nurse sat beside him. "Will you go back?" she asked gently. Cole smiled faintly. "Back to what?" "To being a soldier, or a handler, or—" He shook his head. "No more orders," he said. "Just memories." They buried Ranger's vest that week, not because he died, but because his time as a weapon had ended. They held a small ceremony on base. No speeches, just the sound of boots in the gravel and one American flag folded tight. Cole placed the vest in the wooden box and closed the lid slowly. His voice cracked. He never stopped being a hero. We just stopped looking at him like one. Weeks passed. Cole healed slowly. Ranger stayed by his side, not as a K9 unit, not as government property, but as family. The base made it official. Honorably discharged, K9 Ranger. Status, retired. Companion. One morning, Cole wheeled into the VA center with Ranger at his heel. An older veteran in the waiting room looked up and stared. He pointed, eyes wide. "Is that the dog from the video?" Cole nodded. The man's voice broke. "I thought they put him down." Cole shook his head, smiling faintly. "They tried." He leaned down, resting a hand on Ranger's back. "But memory is a powerful thing." They started calling them the Witnesses. Not just Ranger, but all the dogs like him. Dogs who carried stories in their silence. Dogs who had seen things no one could explain. Who remembered smells long after photos faded. Who never got medals, just cages and tags. Cole didn't want revenge. He wanted those dogs seen. So he wrote, late nights, shaky hands. He typed out, "Every mission, every patrol, every moment Ranger saved a life, including the boy, Tariq." He published it. "Echoes in the dust, what my war dog never forgot." It hit like a silent explosion. Congress responded. Legislation passed. New rules were drafted. Military dogs would now be given full honors upon retirement, and decisions about euthanasia had to pass independent review boards. But even that wasn't what mattered most to Cole. What mattered came one night, years later. Cole was older now. Slower Ranger, too, grey in his muzzle, hips weaker, but his eyes never changed. That night, Cole sat on the porch of their quiet home in Oregon. Ranger lay beside him, curled up against the wood. The stars stretched above like scars across the sky. Cole reached down, touched his dog's head gently. "You remember me now, don't you, old boy?" Ranger blinked, nuzzled his leg. Cole looked at the horizon where the trees met the dark. "I know I don't have much time left," he whispered. "And neither do you," his voice trembled. "But whatever comes, we faced worse. Together." That night, Cole dreamed. He was back in the desert, dust in the air, heat against his skin. Ranger was running beside him, fast, proud, young again. And Cole, he wasn't in the chair, he was running too, laughing. The next morning, the nurse found them both asleep on the porch, Ranger's head in Cole's lap. Neither stirred. Only later would they realize Cole had passed in his sleep. Peaceful, with Ranger beside him. The dog wouldn't leave his side. Not until the last light faded from the sky. They buried them together. The soldier and his dog, no speeches. Just the sound of the wind through the trees and the bark of a single young pup, watching from afar. On the grave, the plaque read, "Sergeant Cole Jennings and K9 Ranger brothers in silence, bound by memory." And somewhere, far off, in a place beyond dust and war, a dog raced across a field, chasing a scent he'd never forgotten, and a voice, warm, human, called out, "Bravo, Echo, home, with me."